when I left the United States Senate, I became a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And I've spent a lot of time, and the University of Delaware has the Biden School there as well. So I spent a lot of time on campus with college students.
Yeah. A little bit of that was true, but most of it was, of course, untrue. So wait a minute, I've got a guy in Florida, presumably a listener in Florida, who is saying that he calls BS on my story about flying the F-16. Is that right? Well, Bill in the free state of Florida, not only is everything I said 100% true, there's a lot more to the story that I could tell. A low pass, actually 2 low passes by the tower, with me at the controls. The F-16, I don't know, Bill, if you know anything about the F-16, the Fighting Falcon, and you're in Florida. Moody Air Force Base is southern Georgia, close to Florida. And the 69th Fighter Squadron. Now, it would be rather foolish of me, Bill, to give this kind of detail and name the pilot that was in the front seat of the airplane. The Air Force Secretary, Sheila Widnall, Clinton administration, that over lunch said, we should get you in fighter jets. And her aide was a lieutenant colonel. I believe his name was Rowdy Yates. Yates, and his call sign was Rowdy. And he set up the trip, and we went down to Moody, and we went out the night before. We had alcoholic beverages. I think we were told that we shouldn't do that, and we ate a bunch, and we were out and about in the town in Valdosta, Georgia, and then we went in for our flight medical checkup the morning of at Moody Air Force Base. Went out to the and we posted just a few photos from the F-16. And outside the F-16. I think on Monday, did we post them on Monday? On Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all of that stuff. And 3 photos, there are more. I also got to fly an F-18, Bill, out of Patuxent River in Maryland, the Navy Flight Test Center. I didn't get to do as much. I did a few aileron rolls and things. I got to fly an A-6 Intruder off the deck of the aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise, 3 times, 3 cats, 3 traps on that. But back to the F-16. So I was flying the F-16, piloting the F-16, as you might, and again, my pilot, and I've looked on the internet for the pilot for more than one time, trying to find him. Because Gary Bell, we went out the night before, ate, drank, we were merry. We went to the chow line in the morning, and I got lots of scrambled eggs and grits and stuff, and he's looking at that going, man, first of all, he said, well, he passed the grits test, and then I ate a huge breakfast, and he says, if you throw that up all over the back seat of my airplane, you're going to stay here all day and all night until it's perfectly clean, and the ground crew gets to tell you when it's perfectly clean because they're not doing any of that. And I said, okay, fine. And we went and did stunts and tricks in this airplane. And, first I just wanted to fly upside down. And then Captain Bell was like, that's boring. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to do that. I said, well, I've never flown upside down. So fly upside down, sure, riding along. You're just hanging in your straps. And I was like, okay, you're right. That's boring. And so now let's, and he's flying the plane and we're pull some G's and stuff. And they were told, that whatever we want to do, Jamie McIntyre and me, whatever we want to do. And I said to Gary Bell, Captain Bell, I said, whatever I want to do, right? We're flying along in the plane. And he said, yeah, that's what we were told. The general of the base said, let them do what they ever want to do. So the F-16 is a very comfortable airplane, more comfortable than the F-18. Reclining seat, wearing a G suit, of course, kind of like chaps pants, and you plug a hose into the side of the plane in the cockpit, and when the plane starts pulling G's, it inflates your pants, right, to crush your legs so the blood doesn't drain out of your head down into your legs, so you pass out. You black out. Your vision becomes narrow, and then you black out and you pass out when you're pulling a lot of G's. But and a small amount of training for this, and I had some other training for other things too. But So I said, anything I want? And he said, yeah. Now, it's an incredibly easy plane to fly, an intuitive plane to fly. You're relaxed, you're reclined, you got the G suit, there's a joystick in your right hand and a throttle in your left hand that just goes forward and back. Just go full forward and you're going, going like that. And the joystick is utterly intuitive, and you pull it back and you go straight up in the sky, and you keep pulling it and you're doing a loop, and you go full throttle because why wouldn't you? You know, you're not paying for the gas, at least I wasn't. And so, as soon as I got control of the airplane, Captain Bell let me control the airplane. I said, okay, here we go. And I went full throttle, pulled it nose up, went straight up, banged it to the left, started doing aileron rolls going up, pulled the throttle back, pulled the nose back with the joystick, straight down, full throttle again, pull up, loop. I'm not, and here's the thing, Bill, in Florida. If I were making this up, Gary Bell is out there somewhere, and I'll bet $1 he remembers this day. And again, I've been looking for him on the internet. I've tried to find him because I want to buy him like 10 steak dinners. It was one of the coolest days of my life. And I'm like, and then I'm asking, it's a 9G airplane. It's a 9G airplane. And after I flew it, they give you a pin that says 9Gs, and it's a little kind of a image of an F-16 airplane, right? But I asked him, do we do 9Gs? And he said, well, the computer's set for 7.5 Gs, so we only did 7.5 Gs. But we did 7.5 Gs with me at the controls, again and again, sustained, doing loops, straight up and down, and then turn the plane on the side. So you turn the plane on the side and go full throttle and pull the stick back all the way. And then you're doing loops like this. I'm going like this with my hand, parallel to the ground. Parallel to the ground, you're doing loops like this. And I got to tell you, Captain Bell was laughing out loud. He was howling, laughing out loud. And he's like, you okay back there? He wants to make sure I'm not throwing up and stuff. So I didn't get sick at all. I've never had motion sickness. And I didn't even think about it. I had a nice big breakfast with scrambled eggs and grits and bacon and orange juice and stuff. And I felt good. Good. And honestly, and I said to him, we were out, Jamie McIntyre, my then compatriot at the Pentagon. We were both out with the pilots, his pilot with Lieutenant Colonel Rowdy Yates, and me with Tinker Bell, the captain. And after we had a night out on the town, said, well, what do you want to do in the airplane? And I said, well, here's what I said. I said, I want to do everything I can to rip the wings off the airplane, pull as many Gs as possible, go crazy. And then on the way back home, I want something to go terribly wrong, so we have to punch out and parachute to the ground. and he sort of laughed and cringed a little and said, well, let's do the first part, but not the last part. And we laughed. And then they asked Jamie, what would you like to do? Jamie is prone to motion sickness. And Jamie said, well, I'd like to do exactly the same thing as Chris just said, except I'd just like to take off once, fly directly to Andrews Air Force Base, and land without turning, if that would be okay. So he said he didn't want to do anything fancy at all. He just wanted to check the box and move on, very much to his credit. And I've flown on and off of aircraft carriers with Jamie and CODs and helicopters and out at all kinds of stuff. But he was prone to motion sickness. So he gave an honest answer. I'll go up and fly, but I don't want to do anything fancy. So he didn't. But I wanted to do everything. And they said, anything you want. And I said, all right then, and took full advantage of the opportunity. And it was a really, really great day. Boy, was that a great day. And I would like somebody to find Gary Bell for me. I think he went on to become a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. And is a great guy. I think we sent him some CNN CNN jackets or something, which they probably spit on and threw away. But that was a hell of a day. Great day. And as for Bill in the free state of Florida, every word of that is true. And there's more. Well, and really because Captain Bell had me flying the plane. I was supposed to stay above 10,000 feet and below 10,000 feet, right? My floor was 10,000 feet. My ceiling was 20,000 feet. And I broke through both of them repeatedly. And then we were coming back to Moody, and Captain Bell had me, we were coming on approach to the runway. And he's like, okay, take the controls. And I'm like, okay, I'll take I felt very comfortable. I said, okay, take the controls. And we're coming in, approaching the runway. And I'm like, you're not going to have, we're getting real close. And we're close to the ground. And I'm like, you're not going to have me land this thing, are you? And he laughed and he said, bring it around. And I went full throttle, punched it, turned it on its side, pulled the nose back, and did one of these, I'm going like this with my hand, around the control tower. And I mean a couple hundred feet off the deck, off the ground, and brought it around. I was like, that was cool. And then we did it a second time. Right? I'm telling the story now. Then we did it a second time, same thing. And I'm bringing it in, and I'm like, we're kind of close, aren't we? And he said, bring it around again. And he was laughing. He was laughing out loud. And I brought it around again. And when we landed and taxied over, the general's car was racing out across the across the apron, and he's like, "Oh gosh, here comes the general," and we got there, and the general was standing there with his knuckles on his hips, ready to yell at Captain Bell, and the canopy on the airplane went up, and I stood up in the back seat, pulled my belts off, and I stood up in the back seat, put my arms up in the air, and said, "Bring on the Barbie twins!" I said, "Bring on the Barbie twins," and the general was there, and the general was not happy, but I believe that Captain Bell went on to a long and prosperous career in the United States Air Force, and it was one of the great days of my life. Let me just say that. That's right. That's what I got. Now, another question. From Lana, if you were at the White House, in the White House briefing room, what question would you ask Cringe? What would you ask Cringe? I'd ask, what happened to her hair? I think I would ask, what happened to her hair? I wouldn't want to ask her about her IQ. You remember that Joe Biden was asked, got in that thing about his IQ. I'd just ask her about her hair, I think. And Bry asked, which ones are doing more damage to the country? The three-letter agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and so on. The three-letter networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN. We'll throw MSNBC in there too. Or the three branches of government. You know, the three-letter agencies are a pox on our culture today, and that's a terrible thing. But in the end, I will say what I think I've said many times, many ways, and that is the three-letter networks, because the free and fair press, the Fourth Estate, is supposed to be here to keep the three-letter agencies in check, and they do not perform that role. Also, the three branches of government are supposed to be held to account by the three-letter networks. And in the end, I think because the three-letter networks may have more power in some ways to hold feet to the fire and to hold people accountable, I think that the three-letter networks are the most corrupt. I think they're more corrupt than the FBI and the CIA and the NSA. And, John Brennan is corrupt, and J. Edgar Comey is corrupt, and Christopher Wray, corrupt. But the networks are supposed to be there to hold them to account. And they don't do that. They don't do that. That's a fact, Jack. That's the biggest problem. I think that's it for our mailbag questions today. I got the F-16 story. Bill doesn't believe. I'm going to need to find Tinker Bell, the Air Force pilot, and ask him what his recollection is of that day. He's out there somewhere. I know he is. That's what I'm saying. Yes, sir. So that's our mailbag. Now, we still have the Nutty Professor in New York City. We've got that for you, who whipped out a machete, and I was corrected. It was from one of our brilliant listeners. It wasn't Hugo Chavez or Marcos. It was Manuel Noriega in Panama that used to pound the machete on the podium. The pineapple, they called him, because his face looked like a pineapple. Must have been tough in high school for Manuel Noriega. My best girl and I, we went, the Panama Canal, did the Panama Canal thing, and you're going by the prison right along the Panama Canal, and they'd say, hey, that's where Manuel Noriega lives. That was fun. Well, we still got the college thing. And Florida, we have more on Florida, Ron DeSantis and the NAACP's travel advisory. I've got updates on that. It's official. Reports say the banking collapse of 2023 is more devastating than the banking collapse of 2008. And right now, a series of global financial dominoes are falling, and it may not be over yet. So don't wait for that tragic email saying, sorry, your account has been frozen. We must take action now to protect what we've worked so hard to build over the years. Call my friends at American Alternative Assets and request your free wealth protection guide. Give them a call at 888, the number 4, Gold 20. Call them right now and be done with it. 888-446-5360. This invaluable guide will outline the precise steps you need to take immediately to transfer your IRA or 401k into precious metals, gold and silver, all without tax consequences. Call American Alternative Assets. Call 888, number 4, Gold 20, and get your free gold and silver guide today. Once again, that's 888-446-5360. Individual results may vary. There's no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Okay, still coming up, we've got the Nutty Professor at Hunter College in New York. They should really just close Hunter College now. This, I think, typical of campuses across America, this woman. And an amazing story, a New York Post reporter went to her apartment, which looked like an Albanian hell. And something funny happened there. Her inner Manuel Noriega came out. And Florida travel advisories coming up. Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. I'm getting a lot of amusing responses to the F-16 story, including from a cameraman friend of mine, Dave. I don't want to use his whole name; he could get in trouble. Who was with me down at Patuxent River the day we went and flew the I went and flew the F-18. That I was having lunch at the Pentagon with three-star Admiral Dennis McGinn, Denny McGinn. He was the head of aviation for the Navy. And he said, have you ever flown an F-18? I said, no, I haven't. You want to fly one? I said, yeah, I would. And we went to Patuxent River Naval Flight Test Center. He wanted to fly the new Super Hornet, and I got to fly in a D model of the regular Hornet. And we did drag races, and Admiral McGinn did drag races, just flat over the ground and watch the Super Hornet pull ahead, then go nose up and go full throttle and watch the Super Hornet pull ahead. And I got to do some aileron rolls and things, but not a lot more. Let's see what the pilot there was. Bert. His call sign was Bert. Yeah. Alpha Whiskey said, awesome story. I was assigned at Moody from 93 to 05, received my incentive flight at Nellis Air Force Base, pulled 8.5 Gs, and broke the speed of sound. I hope you fixed it, because, need to keep the speed of sound intact. Another one here about Secretary Widnall. I'll get to that. All right. Also, Bill in the free state of Florida, who questioned the veracity of my story, has come back on the Twitter, and he says, I guess I'm still smarting. It was the Clinton Air Force Secretary, Sheila Widnall, who was a college professor, had no business being Air Force Secretary, who said, oh, you guys should go down and fly tactical jets. And we said, okay. So Bill in the free state of Florida says, I guess I'm still smarting over the time Secretary Widnall would not ride me like the mechanical bull I was. So this is pure jealousy on my part. And yes, I'm retired military, he says, retired military. Now, the truth is, I was able, 10 years covering the Pentagon. My office was in the Pentagon. I got to do all kinds of crazy stuff, great stuff, not crazy stuff, really great stuff. I jumped out of 2 perfectly good airplanes with the U.S. Army, Golden Knights, their precision and demonstration skydiving parachuting team. Once at Andrews Air Force Base while the air show was going on, now Joint Base Andrews, and once out of an airfield in Virginia on the 2 different airplanes that the Army Golden Knights use. And very cool stuff. And then, my best girl and I went skydiving last year in Moab, Utah. Free fall of more than a mile, fun stuff. But got to spend several days on a Los Angeles class fast attack submarine, the USS Montpelier. It's Los Angeles class modified, SSN 765, I believe. Several days on that in the Atlantic Ocean, hunting French submarines in war games and killing them with slugs. We didn't really kill them with torpedoes, but we were firing fake torpedoes in several days. Got to drive the submarine. There are two driving positions. I got to man one of them and dive. Got to drive the USS Enterprise, the aircraft carrier, and fly, again, A6 Intruder off the Enterprise 3 times. Great stuff. Ride a lot of other ships, amphibious assault ships, and lots of great stuff. Lots and lots of great stuff. Let's go. Let's take a phone call. Then I got to get to the crazy college professor in New York, the nutty professor lady. Let's go to Mike calling from Florida. Mike, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm good, Mike. What do you say?
You're killing me with these stories about flying in F-18s. I got to ask you, did you ever go through any kind of water survival training or go through the famous dunker at Pax River?
I did do the exciting water training, and yes, I did. Yeah, and it was good fun. Good fun.
That's good, because I just retired from Pax River 2 years ago. I was a aviation water survival training instructor.
Oh, no kidding.
One of the guys that would have put me through that training. Yeah, and it's funny. I did 21 years in the Army as well. And, I put a lot of guys through that place, especially at Pax River. A lot of bigwigs go through there. And when I retired, I tried like heck to get a ride in an F-18 and got shot down. And I was just like, I envy your stories about that. I would love to have just been able to get in front of you. And I was totally qualified from the safety aspect of the whole thing. And but no, they were like, nope, can't do it. And I was just like, and I see YouTubers getting rides, and you're telling these stories of all cool stuff you get to do, journalists and VIPs, but the lowly water survival instructor couldn't get a ride. I love hearing stories.
That is a terrible thing, and that's not fair. Clearly unfair. And let me tell you something, Mike. I've heard this. I heard it over the years while I was there. People who spent 20 years in the Army and 20 years in the Navy and 20 years in the Marine Corps, and I never got to do that stuff. And I know. I mean, I know, and I understand that completely. It was the shortcut to getting to do all these things that I wanted to do. But Mike, at Pax River, in the pool, you show up in your full flight suit and boots and all of that, and the flotation device and all that stuff. And they say, jump in the pool, right, Mike? And the first thing is you jump in your flight suit, fully clothed with boots on, and to see if you sink. That's step number one.
Exactly.
And the water survival guy was like, he jumped in, and I'm fine. I'm a strong swimmer, and fine. It just, you sink a little, and you pop back to the top and lay on your back and breathe and, spit water out, and everything's good. And then the dunker is just fun, too. It's like an amusement park ride with water, right? It's good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I never understood how people would get scared going in there, but you had people that, and that's why they do it. They'd panic, they'd lose their wits, they'd lose their marbles, they'd be blacked out, and they'd have to get out through a hatch underwater, upside down, and it's not everybody's cut out for it, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly,
I was also one of the safety divers. I was one of the safety divers that would help people get out in case they couldn't get out. We'd pull them out.
Yeah, in case they panic, which is really the only thing. Well, Michael, thank you for the call. I'm saluting you, sir. I'm saluting you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Keep it up, buddy.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thanks very much. Also, at Andrews Air Force Base, I went in to do B-52 training, where you go into the altitude chamber and, patty cake and, write things down when they start depriving you of oxygen and all that stuff. I did it with, actually, one of the people I did it with was, I believe, Kira Phillips, who was a CNN correspondent and then a Fox News correspondent, and she's great, Kira Phillips. She's a wonderful person, and we did that B-52 altitude training together during the second, the Iraq War, 2004, 2005, all that stuff, because I was going to go do B-52 missions, which I ended up never doing. as a news guy. All right, let's get to the crazy people. Let's get to, but I did get to do all this fun stuff. And it's true, and I run into people all the time. It's like, what? I was in the military for 120 years, and I didn't get to do any of that stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, it was a good job. Boy, it was a great job. My father was a Navy fighter pilot in World War II. He died when I was a baby, though. And Hellcat pilot, aircraft carrier based, obviously. And I got to do all this great stuff. It was, CNN was CNN, but working at the Pentagon was the greatest job. Take the White House and the State Department, those jobs, covering those beats. Give me the Pentagon any day. Greatest beat in the world. All right, let's go to this crazy person. The headlines are great. The New York Post, yesterday we covered this story yesterday, this crazy woman, an adjunct professor, which is a professor at Hunter College in New York City. Shailene Rodriguez is her name. And she's got long braids, going down to her waist, basically. She went up to a table at Hunter College, two young people. I looked closer at the video. I think one of them was a woman, isn't that right? And one a guy. And they had this pro-life thing. And they had information on chemical abortions and stuff. And they want to share it with the college-age kids. The Democrats want them to kill all their children and kill their parents' grandchildren and to harvest the organs. By all means, harvest the organs. So here's the audio of Shailene Rodriguez going up to the table. Two nice, young, pleasant people who looked surprised that this mental case was before them.
You're not educating. This is propaganda. What are you going to do, like anti-trans next? Is that what you're going to do next?
I mean, no, we're talking about abortion.
This is bull. This is violent. You're triggering my students.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're not. Because you can't even have a baby. So you don't even know what that is. You don't even know what this is. Get this out of here, yo.
And she's knocking stuff over on the table and throwing things at them. And, what are you going to do next? Anti-trans stuff? What are you talking about? Why would you even associate those two things? It's because they're two left-wing talking points about which they're all angry because of the mental illness that is so rampant. She said, this is violence. No, you're violent, but we're not violent. We're normal. Remember normal, lady? And the nice young man says, so you're triggering my students, which they weren't. And he very politely said, I'm sorry. No, you're not. She knows that he's not sorry because she's as arrogant and demented as they get. And then a New York Post reporter went to Shailene Rodriguez's house, to her apartment building in New York City. And it looked like, it didn't look nice. Let's just say that. It didn't look nice at all. I've been to Albania. Albania looks nicer than Shailene's apartment. New York City professor Shailene Rodriguez under investigation after chasing Post reporter and photographer with machete. That's the headline at the New York Post. The unhinged New York City professor who held a machete to a New York Post reporter's neck after he knocked on her apartment door to ask her a couple of questions, is under investigation by the NYPD, according to police. It should be a hate crime, don't you? And we got that lunatic George Soros prosecutor there, who is a crook and loves criminals, and he's trying to prosecute the former Marine who had the incident on the subway, right? And maybe he should be arresting this professor and dragging her out in cuffs and bringing it to a grand jury and all this. So here's the incident. It's a brief incident when the New York Post reporter and photographer. The reporter's name is Reuven Fenton, like Reuben, but with a V. Apparently a typo in the hospital or something. Reuven Fenton shows up at the door, knocks on the door. She looked through the peephole, apparently, saw, some white guy out there. She swung the door open real fast, lunged at him with a machete in her right hand, and then pressed it against his neck and said, "We're going to chop you up. And then saw the other guy, the photographer, and looked at him. Then suddenly the machete went down and she recoiled back into her apartment, like a sea serpent of some kind. It sounded like this.
Away from my door. Get the away from my door.
Let's get out of here. You can't do that.
I like the kind of an incomplete response by you'd think a New York Post reporter and photographer would be a little more aggressive than that. Now, he didn't even flinch. He didn't even move. The machetes against his neck. I think I might have reacted physically, perhaps even involuntarily. And the photographer, hey, you can't do that. You can't do that? That's kind of a passive response, isn't it?
Away from my door. Get the away from my door.
Let's get out of here. You can't do that.
Let's get out of here. You can't do that. They sound like they're, on barbiturates or something. Hey, let's get out of here. You can't do that. The crazy person, I guess she curses a lot. She's cursing at the kids, and the thing is, she's pretty typical of college professors in America today, I think. Dangerous, mentally unstable, carry a big machete, threaten. People don't believe in the First Amendment, don't believe in free speech, don't believe you have a right to be pro-life, exterminating 40% of the black population and giving out... And where's Alvin Bragg? Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor, he ought to be doing something about this. Well, the New York Post reporter Reuven Fenton went on the Sean Hannity program last night on the Fox News Channel to explain what had happened when they went to visit this mentally unstable, dangerous criminal / college professor.
We just wanted to speak to this woman. We thought we might have a chance, given that she's obviously passionate about her beliefs, and maybe if we showed up to her door, she'd be willing to grant us an interview. We in my career, I've knocked on 10,000 doors, hoping for interviews, and once in a while, you get one, and I thought this might work out. But I got a bit of a surprise.
A little bit of a surprise. Wouldn't want to be too surprised by such things, but he sounds like a really mellow guy, doesn't he? And he's like, well, this crazy mentally ill person held a machete to my neck and threatened to chop me up. But, then we went and got a coffee.
This was a first for me. She first verbally threatened to chop us up with the machete, and then proceeded to come out of her apartment brandishing the blade and pressing it against the side of my neck. For about a second, and then she, I guess, realized she was being recorded and went back inside.
Hey, journalism can be a rough and tumble business in New York City these days, especially when we want to talk to a college professor, something like that. These people are not well, and honestly, you have to ask, what's going on now? She's been fired. I'm happy to say that she has been, and it's kind of surprising. Now, there's another funny part of this, because the university put out a statement. The university put out a statement saying that she had been fired, and it made me laugh. Why did the statement make you laugh? Well, here's the statement. It says, Hunter College strongly condemns the unacceptable actions of Shailene Rodriguez and has taken immediate action. Rodriguez has been relieved of her duties at Hunter College effective immediately, probably still collecting a paycheck, and will not be returning to teach at the school, right? And that's in quotation marks in a statement they put up. That can be attributed to me or the Hunter College Office of Communications. And then it's signed here by Vince Demetcheli. What is it? Demetcheli. Vince Demetcheli. And AVP. What's an AVP? Was he an adjunct vice president or something? Assistant vice president? I'll go with assistant vice president of communications. Spelled CIMMUNICATIONS. Not communications. He misspelled communications. He's the vice president of communications at the university, and he misspelled communications. In the communication that he put out from the Office of Communications as the vice president of communications. It's Vince Demetcheli. Vince Demetcheli is the AVP of Communications at Hunter College. It says it right there. This college should be collapsed today. They should roll up their tents and go someplace else. This isn't a college at all. If your kids go to Hunter College, you must take action right now. They're not well. bow, bow. Sebastian Gorka texted me, asked me to stop talking about all the cool things I got to do when I covered the Pentagon. I know, I understand. Hey, listen, if you're in the greater Chicagoland area, go to the WLS website, and I'm coming into town for a big event. It's dinner, it's cocktails, it's talking, it's all that good stuff at a country club just outside of the city of Chicago. And it's June 8th. June 8th, am I right? It's June 8th, I believe. June 8th. Yeah, so go to the WLS website. Tickets are required, but please do that, and I'll see you there. WLS. On the internet. You have the internet there? And you go there and you get tickets, and it's good. You'll meet a bunch of people that you love that you haven't met yet. It's good stuff. Now, you know, the NAACP, they put out a travel advisory for the state of Florida because it's too nice, and they don't want. They're nuts. Here's the thing: it's another front group for the Democrat Party. But now, Republican Florida Senator Rick Scott has put out a travel advisory of his own. He's put out a travel advisory. What kind of a travel advisory, you might want to know? Well, let me share with you. Senator Rick Scott issues travel advisory for socialists visiting Florida. The release came out yesterday. Today, Senator Rick Scott issued a formal travel advisory for all socialists visiting the state of Florida. The travel advisory comes in direct response to the Biden administration's attempts to erase capitalism and the system that has brought prosperity to Florida and the entire United States. The formal travel notice states, Florida is openly hostile towards socialists, communists, and those that enable them. Before traveling to Florida, please understand that the state of Florida devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by socialists and others who work in the Biden administration. Let me be clear, any attempt to spread oppression and poverty that socialism always brings will be rebuffed by the people of Florida. Travelers should be aware that attempts to spread socialism in North Florida will fail and be met with laughter and mockery. That's pretty good stuff. That's good. Is the former governor, now Senator Rick Scott. Good stuff. However, in much of Central and South Florida, the situation is far more dangerous for socialists. They may encounter people from Cuba, Venezuela, and other parts of Central America.